Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gynocast. My name is Dr. Eric Heegaard, board-certified obstetrician.
Why do you always laugh when you do that?
I don't know.
I think it's because you put such emphasis on it. You said, bored.
Bored. Well, because it's so tremendously dull. When you say
it's
it,
not
who
dull.
cares?
No,
Board-certified.
Listen,
Well,
you got letters. You got papers.
I got papers. That's
I'm
right.
saying.
And I'm here with Twila Dang.
Hello.
My boss, my buddy, my co-host, and we are on hiatus.
We are. We're on a break.
Hiatus.
Don't say it like that.
Don't hate us. We're on hiatus.
It sounds like we don't like each other very much. Don't do that.
Hey, and so, but we're not really gone. We're just kind of, what are we doing?
We're in the lab. We're making new
That's
episodes, but in the meantime, we didn't want to leave you with
nothing.
with just sort of a longing for us.
That's right.
So we made some mini episodes to sort of tide you over during the break.
Exactly. And so we're just talking about things, little things to think about, and we go,
Yeah, indeed. Think it
dip
over.
your toe in the water of the unknown, of
Yeah.
uncertainty, and think to yourself, maybe I'd like to know a little bit about this. And so we've been coming up with little things like that. And so there was a article that was published in the by the British Association of Sexual Health and HIV that was published recently.
Okay, so you saw the article. I saw the video, the Facebook video that made me panic. Because
Really?
it was
I
like,
didn't see that.
well, there was this like Facebook video. There's a site called I think it's called like Now News, and they do they do a bunch of different kinds of videos, but this particular one was like new STD that you have to be afraid of. And it was like, what? What do you mean a new STD? I know all the STDs. I should know of this. And then I looked at it, I was like, I've never heard of this in my whole life.
Well, this is really interesting because they're talking about a bacteria known as Microplasma genitalium.
Okay.
And so that's
it's just a bacteria.
Yeah, when you're meeting someone at a bar, Twila, like you often are, and just say,
when I'm
hey,
cruising for the kittens because I'm such the cougar.
You got to add that to the list. Do you have Mycoplasma genitalium?
Right.
Well, and so I just love these words. But the thing is that this is actually a serious deal because this is another reason why we are always saying on the show the importance of protecting yourself.
Right.
Because you have to assume that everyone you interact with physically is, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, but if you don't know them and they're basically a walking sexually transmitted infection waiting to be.
Well, what is it? What was the thing you told us a long time ago? Is that you should assume that the person you're with, that you've been with their previous 7 partners, and then in turn that 7's previous 7 partners.
That's right.
And then it just multiplies and multiplies and multiplies.
That's right. And we cannot test for everything. We can test for most things. And the good news, if you want to call it good news, is most people are blissfully ignorant of what they may have.
Right.
Because not everything shows symptoms. And so you may think you're completely clean, but in fact you're carrying, many of the things that many of us carry. And so, but this is a new one, actually it's an old one that's become new again.
Right. Now that was the thing. That's the thing that kind of surprised me is when they said new, I was just like, oh, something mutated, something changed. We've done too much hand soap. Now we're getting a new STD out of it. And then I started to read, I went to dig in a little bit more, and it was like, no, this is actually something that's sort of existed for a while. It's just sort of now.
Right, come to the fore a little bit more because, well, this is the thing. I got to tell you that back in the good old days or the bad old days or the blind old days, I don't even know, we actually used to test for ureaplasma and mycoplasma. This was 20 years ago, and then it kind of dropped off the radar. Why
do you think it dropped off the radar?
Well, because it wasn't a terribly common infection at that time, and this was we were doing this in the infertility clinic that I was working in, and it is something that has been associated with infertility in the past and continues to be as the numbers of these or the percentage of people who have this infection goes up because it can cause pelvic inflammatory disease, it can cause cervicitis, inflammation of the cervix, and whenever you have these sorts of infections, it can increase your chance of having more severe pelvic infections. So, one thing you might have a cervical infection with mycoplasma, and because it's there, it can lead to a more complicated pelvic infection, which can cause problems with infertility. Not to mention just misery and pain and that sort of thing.
Right.
And so the problem is that we have not been under the basic guidelines of testing. We haven't been testing for mycoplasma for a long time, if ever, really routinely. and because it has not been a problem. But in this report, it's estimated that in the world, there's about 3% of the population that's walking around with mycoplasma.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them don't know it. And in Europe, that number is probably about 1 to 2%. And so this is another perfect example of how you need to use condoms unless you are in a monogamous relationship and you really know your partner. Please just do it to protect yourself.
Well, be smart.
Because many people do not have any significant symptoms, just like chlamydia. And herpes and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of people you kind of think if they've got the infection, they'll know about it. Many people don't.
Now, here's the thing I thought was super interesting in the little bit of reading I did. It was saying somewhere, and I might have this a little bit mixed up, that women tend to be more asymptomatic, but that when men present with this and it's sort of advanced, that they actually have like burning, itching, and discomfort. Well,
that may be the case. But I think that I don't know the actual numbers on that. But
okay.
Basically, I think in both partners, people can have these infections and not be symptomatic. And the problem that we're seeing, and the thing that this study highlights, is that the common antibiotics that we use to treat for chlamydia and gonorrhea are becoming mycoplasma is becoming increasingly resistant to it, and so we're testing for chlamydia and gonorrhea, and that's pretty routine. But you can have more than one thing at a time, and also sometimes we just treat people routinely for a non-specific urethritis or inflammation of the urethra or some sort of discharge like that, and we may not have an actual organism that we're treating. And the problem is that the kind of first line and even second line antibiotics such as doxycycline and azithromycin, Mycoplasma and some of the other ones as well are becoming increasingly resistant to it. And so the concern is that this could become what we call a superbug, a bug an infection that's around that is not easily treated by normal antibiotics.
And we're already seeing more and more superbugs.
Precisely. Right? And so this is so stay tuned, because on the GynoCast, as guidelines come forth in terms of when the CDC and American College of OBGYN come up with testing guidelines for mycoplasma, we will do a show on it and talk more about it. But in the meantime, the best thing you can do is protect yourself. And of course, if you have symptoms, get in and get tested and treated. And you can be tested for ureaplasma, Mycoplasma genitalium. But it's not a common test, so you may have to ask for it, and it's still a little bit of work in progress.
Is there a condition under which you should ask for it? Like, are there certain symptoms that would present, or something that would make you think I should ask for this?
Well, I think that any symptoms that do not respond to normal treatments. So,
okay.
For example, if you've got a discharge, if you've got pain, if you've got things that would normally go along, symptoms of a sexually transmitted infection, and you are treated with kind of the normal course of antibiotics, and things don't improve.
Okay, then you want to do that.
And providers should be thinking about this, but it never hurts to advocate for yourself, as we talk about, because this is obviously something that's kind of come back to the fore just recently as something to think about.
I guess one more ancillary question connected to it. Does this particular bacteria exacerbate or make other STDs worse?
Well, I don't know if that's clear, but we know, for example, that when you have one type of sexually transmitted infection, it can oftentimes make it easier for others to kind of take root.
Oh, it's like a gateway.
It's like a gateway because I think, for example, the classic one is like bacterial vaginosis, which is really more of an inflammation where you get an overgrowth of normal bacteria, but it's for example, the bacteria that are in the vagina are supposed to be predominantly lactobacillus, but everybody's got a little bit of gram-negative bacteria that are kind of usually found in the colon and that sort of thing. But what can happen is that when something will disturb that balance, and you'll get bad bacteria that are normally there in low numbers that become predominant. Mm-hmm. And so when that happens, it causes an inflammation of the tissue and symptoms, and also can make it just more likely for other bacterial or viral infections to kind of have easier access to the upper genital tract. And so I think you could probably assume that the same thing is with mycoplasma, that if you get this inflammation, it's not an infection, if it's not well treated, it might put you at increased risk for getting other sexually transmitted infections or a polymicrobial infection such as pelvic inflammatory disease, which means that when you get an infection of the whole pelvis from something that's come up through the vagina and the cervix, oftentimes it's more than one, bacteria.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So in other words,
so just
wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Exactly. Wrap it up. And if you have symptoms, get in, get it treated. If they don't get better, get back in, and don't mess around with this stuff, because
Play safe, kids.
It's more than just feeling bad,
Yeah.
which is bad enough, but it also can really damage your ability to be fertile in the future. If that's something you are concerned about.
Yeah, that's not okay. Now we're going to do a follow-up episode on this with more extensive information. We're recording new episodes right now, and in the meantime we want to hear from you. So go to the website, go to matriarchdm.com, check out the GynoCast page. You can listen to previous episodes. You can email us at hello@matriarchdm.com. You can also follow us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. The GynoCast has a group. Go to Facebook, go to the search bar and type in the GynoCast. You can request to be a member. We will vet you, and if you get in, which I promise isn't difficult to do, you will have a chance to be a part of our group. We have conversations. We pose questions. We provide support about a lot of the topics and around a lot of the topics we talk about here. But we always try to make sure we provide a safe and supportive and respectful environment to do that. In the meantime, we will be back very soon with brand new episodes. So thank you so much for your support. We will talk to you soon.